Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, here to usher you into November 14th, middle of November. Not much going on here. I got another week next week, and I believe I'll probably try to take Thanksgiving weekend off at some point. We have a long month of November, and we have a lot longer city council this week for you guys than we did last week. And we're doing what they were talking about just recently. They just sworn in the new city council ward member one who just recently won the election last Tuesday, Betsy Kraske, who will go on to serve for the next couple months before she officially starts her term in January. So she was sworn in a little bit early, and Mayor Andrea Davis talks a little bit more about this situation.
Betsy Kraske has been appointed to Ward 1 as of this morning. This was based on City Council's decision to fill the vacancy that had been created in Ward 1 when Jennifer Savage had stepped down because of her run in Ward 3. And because of the time frame, City Council made the choice to appoint the person that was elected by the voters in the general election, and should that vote be of basically a non-contested margin, which it was, then this person would start on Monday, November 10th. So Betsy Kraske has been elected in Ward 1 for a 4-year term. That 4-year term will start in January. But in the meantime, she's been appointed for the remainder of the term, which Betsy will be, Councilor Kraske will be serving with the council through December of this year in this role. So welcome, Councilor Kraske.
All right. Got a new member, much a little bit earlier than the January turnaround, but we're going to kick things off with big announcement from our own Parks and Rec Director, Donna Gockler, who officially retired as of Wednesday. And the City of Missoula saw it fit to dedicate a day to her for proclamation for Wednesday. So here's Donna Gockler, recently retired, talking a little bit more about her service.
I absolutely love Missoula. It's hard. I could never have imagined as a child getting to spend a career helping people meet each other, find ways to play, and being able to steward the land at the same time. And it wouldn't be possible. I've said this many times. I got to work under many wonderful mayors since Camas. And it's been a fantastic road, and a whole bunch of wonderful council members who have been incredibly supportive. And I always have appreciated the challenges, the reports, and the requests, and then literally thousands of staff. This summer we had 400 Parks and Recreation employees delivering services to our community, doing our best to steward taxpayer dollars to provide the very best facilities where together we can grow, find our gifts, meet each other, and have an exceptionally vibrant community.
All right. So for 34 years, Donna Gockler has worked in some forms of Parks and Rec, and for over 20 was the Director of Parks and Rec for the City of Missoula since, I believe, for the last 23 years. So Donna Gockler, under her tutelage, they managed to advocate for open space, park projects, park districts for funding, zoning to implement parks through development code as they aim for the future of parks as they pertain to future development. And I cannot say enough about Tuesday's Veterans Day was another proclamation to celebrate 250 years of the formation of the U.S. Marine Corps. During public comment, some of the people voiced concerns about Midtown and Southgate Triangle and about how the City of Missoula has essentially sped up the process in lieu of development as a trade-off for affordable housing. And here is the first comment by Carrie Schrader, who has been vocal about this since the beginning.
Without knowing what type of commercial is going to be bordering the park, it's really hard to plan on what that park should look like. But I did hear a lot of enthusiasm from like employees at Bob Ward's or Big Dipper about having a space that they can use on their lunch hour, as well as neighbors that are used to walking their dogs there. Of course, would love for that to continue open. I don't know. I just hope we would get some actual engagement with the community through easy signage rather than just these online platforms.
Okay. And, probably part of this also is that a lot of people are assuming what this is going to be right away when they just finally settled on a developer to start the development process. So it's in the very early preliminary phases. However, many people in the community think that they should be more done through the city of Missoula rather than just being like, yeah, you can develop. So here's another public comment, Katie Thompson, talking a little bit more about her feelings about this.
And so it is really cool to think, hey, we own this right now, so let's try to have some input. And I'm just begging you guys, because so far I do not feel like you have considered what we've gotten up and spoken to repeatedly, which is the needs of the seniors, senior housing, affordable housing. So if we let this developer in to do his thing and we don't have anything in place stipulating, you can say, oh, well, he's going to charge in the mid-range. Well, you all know you will not have control over that. So, now is our opportunity. I also feel like you're not taking into consideration the surrounding neighbor population as well as the increased population that will be coming into this development, and that you're just giving the bare minimum for a park, which is pretty heartbreaking.
All right. So yeah, the Southgate Triangle next to Bob Ward's, that's a big part of it, and the city has been a little reluctant to have requirements of affordable housing for developers as the city grapples with potential legal issues when having the lion's share of costs fall onto other dwelling units to pay for affordable units, which is why a lot of developers kind of sway away from those, because for the most part they develop properties to sell properties, and that's kind of been their business model for a long time now. So the material costs are all the same no matter what the building used to look like. At the end of the Monday's meeting, Mayor Davis spoke about the closure of Cold Spring schools as they have been deemed unsafe by building code standards, and this is, of course, safety inspections, Health and Human Services, all this kind of stuff. So Mayor Andrea Davis addressed these concerns when they closed the Cold Spring School, which has been used for daycare facilities for 6 different organizations utilizing that building past its life.
Cold Springs Elementary would not be able to continue with Missoula Child Care Advantage for basically an impending roof issue. So they had a roof failure in the wing where the Missoula Child Care Advantage takes place. And Councilor Nugent, you may have some updates on this. I'll just mention that our Parks Department has been working alongside. Missoula Parks Department does not operate any part of Missoula Child Care Advantage. But we have been working with Missoula County Public Schools on the potential to utilize some space in Jefferson School, and sounds like we'll be brainstorming together what some options are there in terms of helping these providers that are providing childcare. I believe there's 6 or 7 child providers there. Hopefully the Missoula County Public Schools, the United Way, are working very hard with Missoula Child Care Advantage to get these folks relocated.
Yeah, I can already hear the people on the north side saying, well, who needs a daycare center on the north side now? So I can remind, which, if you don't know, the idea is that with the Scott Street project, the developers of that expressly asked for the city of Missoula to nullify that part of their contract when they're developing the site. So kind of ironic in a way. MCPS rents out their former building to these organizations, and so far it looks like Jefferson School will hopefully try to take up the mantle, but you got to redevelop some of the area so it's compliant, all that kind of stuff. Especially when it comes to childcare, it's getting more and more expensive, and people are trying to find out ways to kind of stretch it out and take advantage of any kind of programs they can to get part of this as well. Head Start School is a great example of one of those government subsidies, federally funded programs that, even Montana Free Press spoke about I spoke about this through the Montana Free Press article a couple weeks ago when they were dealing with the fact that one of the Highland Head Start schools on the northern eastern parts of Montana. They dealt with budget shortfalls because the federal shutdowns and all that kind of stuff. And I haven't heard anything following up with that as well. But that's kind of, it was a very short city council meeting. But a lot of the meat and potatoes throughout my city council report comes from land use and planning, where they're talking about the Unified Development Code. But we're going to jump right into the other part, which talks about floodplain. And the floodplain map is being redeveloped, reassessed for the Department of Natural Resources. So Nadine Wadsworth from DNRC of Montana talks about some of the details that are going into the floodplain and the rates and everything associated with, change in the maps.
City and county regulate these mapped floodplains for development. Federally backed flood insurance is available to all residents within the city and county, regardless of whether or not they're in a mapped flood zone. They're used for local planning to help guide growth and development. Your county emergency manager uses these to determine if roads are overtopped during flood events. County sanitarian, mortgage companies use these to determine if a home they're going to finance is at risk of being flooded. And these maps help establish the rates for flood insurance premiums.
Yeah, so if you were kind of listening, I definitely heard some audio issues from there as well, but a big chunk of this is the fact that these floodplain maps are put into place for, when the city does code, liability, and not to mention, like she was mentioning, Wadsworth was basically saying is that insurance covers everything, and this is to allow for FEMA to be enacted to help these kind of processes. So moving forward, this affects the emergency funds like FEMA for towns and requires these kinds of updates and research to understand risk and when building. 100-year floodplains is like saying you have a 1 in 5 chance that in 100 years you'll experience flood-like conditions. Missoula is kind of like a former marshland, being so close to the river and having flat region, where with many areas, especially in the Mullen area, being one of those higher risk areas for flooding. I would know my parents sued the county with a class action lawsuit and over the homes being allowed to be built in the Mullen area, especially when you have all this Mullen Build project, you have all those farmlands that are being redeveloped. There's just a lot of things like that. And not to mention, it was in the middle of the 90s with that weird 20-year snow event that we've had in 2014 of March. If you've been here in Missoula, we had that avalanche on Rattlesnake. That was basically roughly 20 years after the previous snow event that happened, which caused flooding in my parents' neighborhood when they lived in the Mullen area at the time. Sometimes they build up berms and levees to help mitigate and rearrange, and Army Corps of Engineers come up and try to rearrange the river so it doesn't erode some lands around there. And Nadine talks about some of those man-made flood prevention efforts more so.
There are actually 5 within city limits: the McCormick, Monrock, Orchard Homes, the Area 3, and the Area 5 levees. We coordinated with Cassie's predecessor to really identify these levees, but they're also identified in the Army Corps of Engineers National Levee Database. So in order for a levee to be able to be shown on a flood map that it provides that reduced flood risk, a certification has to be done by a professional engineer, or in the city's case, a federal agency, to show that the levee meets standards and guidance. And then that certification is sent to FEMA for their review and consideration.
All right. So one thing you should also note about this is that according to some of their information, Orchard Homes, McCormick, and Monroe are not accredited levees in Missoula, according to the same Army Corps of Engineers. That means these areas are still zoned floodplain and could see their insurance rates change as a reflection of that. So just so you guys know, Nadine also shows a map of the floodplain adjustments and how things have changed over the last couple of years. And what she mentions is that the areas in, wait, hold on. Okay, so here she is once again.
This is just that 100-year or 1%. And if you remember the table I showed that had the red, green, and blue, that's what this correlates to. So anywhere you see red is proposed to be added. Anywhere you see that green will be removed. And then anywhere you see that blue is unchanged. So it's in and it's going to remain in.
And of course, if you can see here, river changes. It looks like there's more potential with the green areas as opposed to the red areas. Just rivers erode. They change the landscape, the terrain. They have buffer zones for floodplains and all sorts of things as they get closer to the river. So things are changing, and the floodplain is more informational and updating the maps for liability insurance, FEMA, and future development of these sites. Steps that need to be taken as a result of the changing terrain because of our rivers that change them. Climate Conservation and Parks Committee, they talk about Hayden Open Space Project, which aims to purchase more open space land money for conservation purposes. But this one in particular is going to basically be the end of the 2006 open space bond money, with a total of roughly $26,000 left in the 2006 fund, while they move over to more of 2018's big fund. So Zach Covington, Parks and Rec space manager, open space manager, talks Hayden and Inderland as their properties.
We didn't have that much in the 06 bond fund, so we were trying to take smaller projects and kind of piece those into the 06 bond fund to try to get it spent out without having to split those funds. But the county's asking us to try to do what we need to do to get that 2006 open space bond fund closed out. So we originally had a couple of projects that were approved, and I'll show you a little chart here in a second, but the recommended action here for today is to apply the remaining 2006 open space bond fund to the already approved Inderland Laval Creek Conservation Easement Project of $344,000. And utilize the 2018 open space bond funds for the already approved Hayden Grass Valley Conservation Easement Project, which was previously approved under the 2006 open space bond.
Yep. So a lot of money gets earmarked for certain projects, certain things in the future, and the board that oversees open space. There's an open space committee that kind of works because it does both city and county, while the county also has some piece of the pie. So how this bond worked in the 2006 version of it is that they raised money to help buy and purchase open space land, and then 2018 was an extension of that, which was asking for $7 million in 2018, and this was split between city and county. So the city had $3.5 million and the county had $3.5 million that would go into these kinds of open space projects, land acquisitions, and all that kind of stuff. The next one tends to follow people who release their land to city and or county for use, and the city has plans for the 24-acre of undeveloped open space in the Grand Creek North Hills area. Would like to leave a legacy for greater Missoula community by fully donating conservation easement in to protect the natural landscape and scenic views of the property. So Zach Covington talks about the area in question, and it's basically by that recently purchased open space bluebird preserve that they just recently got.
You can kind of see per this map along Glen Eagle Way, the kind of L-shaped property that says City of Missoula in red, that's Bluebird. So just north of Bluebird, you can kind of see that dark blue property that's owned by the county. And then to the right of Bluebird is a Five Valleys Land Trust Conservation Easement, which is the Allied Waste for Public Services property. That has a conservation easement that we recently constructed, I think about 3 miles of trails on this last summer, which is pretty exciting. So there's a lot of activity on Bluebird, a lot of activity on the Allied Waste property. It's becoming really popular, and so a lot of demand up there for trails right now.
All right, and speaking of trails, it's one of those places that's like, yeah, it's by the dump. Yeah, we're getting all this land easements by the dump, and Zach also shows some pictures of the particular area in question. Just give a nice boots on the ground kind of look.
Open space cornerstone. You can see how it lines up with that planning. This is a photo of from the property, standing on top of the hill where this conservation easement would be placed, looking south towards Missoula. This is standing on a hill to the south looking north to the property. So on the left, kind of that middle left side of the screen, that mound is largely where the property is. You can see it's in a very prominent area. This is a place that is viewed by Missoula and from Grant Creek, and it's pretty easy to see. It's a pretty prominent hill. This is a user-made trail. The local residents basically made their own trail to connect to Bluebird in those areas. So there's some demand there in that neighborhood for connections, and this is one of the places where we would potentially have trail easement.
All right. So yeah, there's a lot more public lands being more effectively opened up on the north side. This is just another part of it. It's going to be 24 more acres, and it's going to be to the city of Missoula, all for the low, low price of free. Most of the time, easements are a way of getting rid of properties that don't want to pay the taxes on. They tend to bequeath it as a means to not pay the property taxes on that 5 acres, for example. But the resolution did, of course, state that this would want to be fully donated for the purpose of conservation, mind you. So, Land Use and Planning Part 2, they continued this conversation into the last parts of the meeting because they needed the extra time to talk about the Unified Development Code. And the Unified Development Code is one of the most important features of the city of Missoula as they go into the new fiscal year. Fiscal year is where they talk about, where they go into the new year of January with all these new codes and developments put into place as construction season can finally kick off and move forward. So Cassie Tripard, planning supervisor for the city, talks Unified Development Code, and this is what she had to say.
Winter, this plan identified 6 major policy themes that will be implemented by the code. The land use plan included place type descriptions and a place types map, which identifies generally what type and scale of development is planned for each area of the city. The place types are translated into zoning districts, and the land use plan also included new street typologies, which you will find in the manual. In 2023, not long after the kickoff of this project, the state adopted the new Montana Land Use and Planning Act. This act significantly changed the framework for land use law in Montana. Right now, the city is operating under the old state law, and when the new code is adopted, the city will be operating under the new state law.
All right, so a big part of it has a lot to do with state law and requirements. The city is just trying to keep up, but at the same time, utilizing, I've spoken about this briefly, but the major takeaway is blending high density and low density in a seamless way to avoid blight in more traditional neighborhoods. They talk about this in length in a lot of presentations where they have urban residential, urban rural, all that kind of stuff. I think of it as the Missoula Build project has some of that urban sprawl mixed in with townhouses, reducing down to single dwelling units, aka homes on land or lots. The city took this very seriously with 18 outreach programs from open houses with over 300 people attending and local meetups, and expressed the state law and changes Missoula wants to make to fit into Missoula's mold of future development. So there's a lot more opportunity for the city of Missoula to adopt certain things to move forward, a lot more responsibilities, especially since the planning board, which used to cover county and city, will now essentially be split in half. So Cassie talks about some of the Missoula changes to the state code.
A part of West Broadway is now industrial and employment. A section of Swatuquin has been redesignated urban mixed-use low. Citywide updates align parks and conservation areas with the PROS plan, and some university-owned parcels are now civic. A future commercial node in Linda Vista is moving to mixed use. The Upper Rattlesnake Winery has been expanded to allow additional agricultural uses. And one block in the Riverfront neighborhood is shifting to mixed use.
Yep, so these are some of the things that the city wants to add on top of what the state requires. So from 8 different fields, the city consolidated the following into this unified code, which will involve introductory provisions, beginning permitting processes, admin and procedures, research by the city and staff to see if this is viable, zoning to see if it matches with development, subdivision, infrastructure improvements, building and construction, and definitions, which completes the permitting process, understanding of what will be built on that parcel of land. So essentially 8 different fields are trying to unify into one. They went through the details through the presentation. with 8 items to refer to when adopting the Unified Development Code. The takeaway from feedback in the community showed that any kind of high-density development should be reserved for new neighborhoods as opposed to established neighborhoods that cannot adjust to higher density based on current spacing concerns. Mind you, Franklin to the Fort has always kind of like those single homes on little lots of land, and they're usually single level, but certain parts of this code would essentially allow for expansion of those homes, potentially adding another layer to those more traditional, like really traditional homes which never had a second level in the Franklin to the Fort. I'm only picking on them because that tends to be a good outlier of some of those neighborhoods that were kind of more of the suburban areas in the previous times before people started to really move out of the city of Missoula for more of those areas. And now it kind of feels like most people are living out like Lolo, Bonner, and Florence, Frenchtown, instead of actually living within the city of Missoula. Franklin to the Fort is a great example of streets that are full of cars parked on the side. Adding density would not solve many of those issues, which is what the Unified Code is looking into as well. Even though many of those parking requirements that this code is looking into will have severe reductions, because most of the time the idea of like per dwelling units, 2 parking spots per dwelling units, the city has reduced that to about 1 car per dwelling units, regardless of the occupancy, because statistically, people are worth 1.5 car, which essentially means that most couples have at least a third car as a backup car. That was kind of like the trend moving into, before the, whole trouble trying to find a place to live kind of issues, but that was kind of like the old statistic that they're going off of. Don't take my word for it. This meeting went into detail about this and more, and at the end of the presentation, they will have plenty of land use and planning boards going over this for the next couple of weeks to get your input. And Nathan McLeod, Parks and Rec Open Space, talks about parks in zoning and code reform. So this is another big step that they're looking into, trying to figure out how to incorporate parks as they develop neighborhoods.
That money would give the Parks Department some tools to actually build amenities in those nearby parks that would support the new residents that would be living in those developments that do not have activity area. And if I can, I think your question's also getting to a larger idea of cash in lieu for parkland dedication. And so the intent of having the option for cash in lieu instead of dedicating land area for parks is that it doesn't, how do I phrase this? Prost has adopted the Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Plan. We have set a standard for our service area of parks. So we want to have a park within a 10-minute walk of all residents. And it doesn't help us to have a lot of very small parks that are very close together. It's really expensive for us to maintain those. And so it's better off when we have one larger park that's nearby that we have funds to actually provide amenities in, rather than a bunch of smaller parks that don't have any amenities. And so,
yep. So that was his comment on some of the Prost, which is their essentially their own development code for Parks Department, and these were answering some of the questions about details from the presentation. As of last week, they mentioned that the Hillview Way project that included a park dedication as part of the development for Parks and Rec to take it over after the developer builds it. These things often not included in most developments. However, smaller parcels and parks could fall under the HOAs instead for costs and maintenance, instead of the Parks and Rec Department taking over for this. So Aaron P. and Community Planning talks with working with state law, and Cassie adds on into the discussion at the end, further explaining how this is going to work.
Ultimately, we have a good deal of choice in what zoning reforms we land on. We are required to choose a minimum of 5 zoning reforms, but as a community, we get to decide what many of those zoning reforms are. And our recommendations lie within the text of the UDC. Yeah, that's a good statement. I did bring up those criteria earlier, which are more or less how council and planning commission assess our regulations for compliance with state law. In 7625-303, there are limitations on zoning authority listed. It's not a very long piece of state law, but it has a few prohibitions, some very strange and specific, like our inability to set maximum height limits for amateur radio antennas, the requirement to treat manufactured housing like other residential units. We're not allowed to treat them differently. It contains the requirement that the city cannot do inclusionary zoning, meaning we can't require affordable housing. But there are other things listed, and again, that's 7625-303. But otherwise, aside from that short list and the need to adopt the kind of housing-friendly reforms in state law, we do have a lot of authority and flexibility in what we adopt.
Yeah, so it's another something to think about as well as we're looking into reform, development code, and stuff like that. There is potential to see change in how Missoula grows. However, something that many people in Missoula don't know is that the state removed some restrictions on historic districts, which preservation of older buildings has gotten a lot harder as a result. While they have some protections in the past, many of the issues coming out of Fort Missoula's post-hospital could impact these code reforms. When asked about the simplicity of Missoula residents, Erin Pean was asked if the general community understood the assignment, and this is what she had to say.
For me, it goes back to the different phases of this project. And so we did spend a significant amount of time working with the community on the creation of the land use plan. The land use plan really sets the baseline of our community values and how we want to move ahead in terms of growth and equal and sustainable growth in our community. The UDC is the tool that assists us in doing that. By nature, it is much more technical and typically is much more fluent to those who are in the field doing the work. All that being said, we want a code that anyone can pick up and read, but code is technical because the work is technical. So,
all right, so that was Erin Pean. Wrapping up my city council report for you guys. You know, there's a lot more nuance with this, and this is going to be, this is their preliminary presentation where they're introducing all the information that they've gathered up into this point, and now it's going into amending, adjusting, and doing all those things that are necessary to do with any kind of code reform, is to be compliant first and foremost, and then get a little bit crazy with some of the details in which they want to see if they can push some of the things to move forward with their greater vision of Missoula. As you heard. With that, I'll wrap up my city council. And to learn more, you can go to ci.missoula.mt.us and to look at the calendar for past videos and upcoming agendas. Unified Development Code will be discussed throughout the month of December, for the month of November, and then finalized for vote on Monday and sometime in December. And as always, you can look at this project at engagemissoula.com, and for everything else, watch MCAT. So speaking of MCAT, we got some new programs airing on today as well, so we're going to throw it over to some new programming. So I hope you guys enjoy. These are the new programs that you can watch anytime right now on our YouTube page.
This is how TIF raises taxes. Right now, $16.9 million is being skimmed off the tax base. That's roughly $5 million from the city, $5 million from the county, $5 million from the schools. Just to put that in perspective, Missoula County, Commissioner Slot Lake, collects $70 million a year in property taxes. So $17 million represents 24% of your entire property tax base that is being skimmed off the top. The MRA's budget, including increment reserves, is $47 million. That is almost as much as you guys collect in the county, Commissioner Slot Lake, on property taxes. Again, we talked about the debt. So let's just go through a quick example of how it raises taxes. So there's a local school that needs to raise $600 for some needs of their kids. This also works with sheriff, with the county, with the fire district, and they need $600. So they go to their district, and for simplicity purposes, we'll say half of their district's in a TIF district, half is outside a TIF district. So they levy the $600. Question is, how much money do they still need? They still need $300 because this $300 inside the TIF district doesn't go to the school. It goes to the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. And so,
those are all of the sites that were abandoned pre-1977, which are pre-law. And so we have a program of 3 that get to address all of those across the state of Montana. And so I'll touch a little bit on that and how that interplays, like in areas of Phillipsburg and some of those historic mining areas that are not necessarily Superfund. So a little bit about, our focus as an agency is we recognize that it's been a long impaired waterway in the state. And our water quality program does a lot of monitoring and assessment to see what the existing conditions are, but also what the future impacts look like, especially when we have more people moving into the state.
So the people at home, they can see this is the pulp online. You want to describe it a little bit for folks watching?
Yeah, so online we have stories. We try to have, a couple stories. We're shooting for, 3 to come out a week. We don't always hit that. There's just 2 of us running it still.
Yeah.
With, pool of freelancers. And we're still really building it. But yeah, it's the coverage is, a lot of, it's not breaking news. It's like kind of more of the what the Independent did in a lot of ways, which was sort of to try to find human-centered stories that are kind of the weird angle or the fun angle, and find ways to tell stories that people do need to hear.
Because there's so many surprises in nature if you just think like nature and you put away your biases and actually look at what the system is trying to tell us. I get this question a lot. Does thinning work? Well, what is your definition of work, right? It depends on what your objective is. If your objective is to lower fire intensity on the very restrictive criteria, you can actually lower fire intensity. If you have low to moderate fire weather, you leave the canopy intact, you vary the spacing of your treatments, you avoid clear-cutting the understory, you use prescribed burning, that pile burning, and you don't overburn, you get rid of the flammable weeds and the vectors of flammability, you close and obliterate roads. Maybe you could lower fire intensity, and there have been meta-analyses that have showed this to be the case.
I think it's a wise decision. It's a brand new thing. It happened only a few months ago. But I think it's a bit late. This should have been done back in 1990s, just after the fall of the Iron Curtain. Now, okay, not too many people vote for the Communist Party now, because ANO movement actually, took most of their voters. So yeah, it's illegal to promote communist ideology and to use communist symbols like hammer and cycle and the red star and stuff like that. But most of the traditional hard-wing communists, they are gone now anyway. So.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some new movies that are coming out this weekend. It's time for Precritic, where I judge movies based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies in general. So we're going to kick things off with a brand new movie, The Running Man. Actually, it's not much of a brand new movie since it's a re-adaptation of the Stephen King book, directed by Edgar Wright, who did Baby Driver and all those Cornetto trilogy of Shaun of the Dead and more. So, the whole idea of this movie is a dystopian ruled society, probably very similar to the one we live in, because dystopian societies always have to reflect the lives we live, blah, 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 surreal reality. So this is a reality show in which it's basically like a gladiator sport, but instead everyone's playing a cat and mouse game against people who are running away from, I guess, gladiators. And the people basically are incentivized to rat them out as they go along. So evil corporate media, if they rule the world and they take a group of people on the edge of poverty and desperate to enough to fight for their right to earn a little bit of cash. So that's what you can expect from this movie. Then we got Now You See Me, Now You Don't. And taking some time off from a series that had basically their second movie drop the ball on naming it Now You Don't. This is the third movie in the franchise that brings magicians together to pull off the ultimate heist. And so it's not much different from a basic typical heist movie, but a lot more annoying in terms of like how magicians do the things. Imagine a comedian that's not funny. And so Public Enemy, basically the whole idea of they're magicians that basically become so popular at doing the heists against like evil corporations and such that most people love them, and most people who are rich hate them because they're going to heist money out of them. So I don't know, they're going to do a big heist this time, and it's going to happen again. All right. We have a bunch of movies that are coming out this week, and I'm going to run right through them as fast as possible. Keeper, we have A Ghost in the Cabin in the Woods. What else is new? And a couple, and on their anniversary, what can go wrong? A lot of things go wrong. It's a horror movie. Carpenter's Son, Jesus, or maybe a kid who has special powers being raised by Nicolas Cage. Grizzled badass who must fight for his son, who may or may not be the guy. More or less, this might be a magical kid around the same time as Jesus, but they pulled a Merlin and the Apprentice type of situation, one that Nicolas Cage did nearly 20 years ago. Then we got The Trap House, or Trap House. You want to bring, you want your kids to step up, but when your kids actually do step up, and surprisingly well, you're just like, we got to stop our kids from doing so well. So that's basically what this movie idea is. It's like you have DEA agents finding out that their kids are using their DEA information to gain the system and do their own act of justice. And then we got Muzzle, City of Wolves. The city is crime-ridden, and only man and his dog can fight the bad guys, whether it's gang or corrupt folks. And since it's a dog, canine unit, it always has to do with drugs, because that's why canines are used most of the time, unless they're SWAT, which they're used to just infiltrate and attack people. All right, then we got The Things You Kill. Throw mama from a train, but essentially it's a gardener who is kind of a secret badass, and they're just like, oh, I got to get rid of this person. Can you help me? I was like, I clip roses. It's like, is that all you do? It's like, fine. That's basically what the movie's about, is essentially convincing a gardener to commit crimes on behalf of you. All right, up next, we have a new Dubbin Stuff from the 1970 sci-fi movie Satan's Harvest. So when I come back, we're going to talk about some events.
I present to you, welcome to Dubbin Stuff Park. Ugh. I don't like the sound of that, do you? It sounds terrible. Come on, man. Give it a chance. I don't know if I'm going to give it a chance. I just don't believe in the whole Dubbin Stuff thing. But here, we've been driving for quite a while. Why don't you just take a drink? Well, seems like everyone's moving along. Here, I packed some apple juice for you. Thanks. Oh, God, what is this? Oh, sorry. It was a long drive and there are no bathroom breaks. Oh, actually, it might be just apple cider vinegar by now. Oh, man, is that what they make it out of? Ugh. Ugh. You got any more of that? Oh, plenty more of this stuff. It's good for you. It has E. coli, cultures, and all sorts of healthy things for your biome. You're a real sicko, you know that? Oh, come on. Would you like to know the secrets of pre- and probiotics? Because I can tell you, it's all BS. The secret is basil. All right, that's enough of that. All right. Ugh. All right. I'll come back for the hippie juice later, but right now I got a lady to check on.
That's me. I'm the lady they're checking on. Driver, pull me aside to the fence. Oh, hello there. I heard you were looking for me. Because why wouldn't you be looking for me? Because I'm me.
Why, we're just about to move out.
Well, I can plainly see that, but thanks for telling me.
Ugh, what's with the laugh?
I'm not laughing. Oh my God. We should write our initials in these trees.
Well, technically, I already got one.
What others? What about that tree?
Yeah, that one too.
That rock?
Yeah. Maybe that's not the best idea.
I'm having such a wonderful time in this desolate wasteland tundra thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say more.
Would you like me to? Because I can talk for hours and hours and hours.
Well, I got a solution for that. Yeah, that'll shut you up. I mean,
excuse me? What is that supposed to mean?
Oh, look over there. Cheetahs are hunting.
What? Don't change the subject.
Listen, I'm sorry, that was kind of an outburst. I've been through a lot.
And I don't take kindly to that disrespect, but let's watch the cheetahs instead. Oh, look at them go. Whoa, that's crazy. They're hunting. I hope they don't kill anything, because that would be very, very scary.
Well, Helen, they gotta eat.
Well, that's not fair. My cat doesn't eat meat, and it's really skinny, just like these cheetahs.
Whoa, settle down now. Horses aren't used to high-pitched voices.
Stop it, Butterscotch. Stop it. Stop. Okay, I hope they get... No, oh, that stinks.
Yeah, we better get out of here. The cheetahs might attack us.
Do you think the thing's okay?
Yeah, it's playing with the cheetahs. Yeah, playing. Oh.
right, let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about some events that are happening inside and around the city of Missoula. We have a lot of those crafts fairs and stuff leading up until Holiday weekend, but kicking things off, it's Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Any school, the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day Volunteer Committee, Montana is encouraging the 3rd to 8th grade kids across the city and state to walk to school on November 14th to honor the unity and courage of Ruby Bridges, one of the first black girls to attend a desegregated school in the South. Just swinging baseball and softball camp at Up Missoula starting this early at 9 a.m. Join the DBAT Missoula for just our swinging bat and softball camp where players of all skill levels can sharpen their game for fun, focused environment. This comprehensive camp covers hitting, fielding, pitching, game fundamentals, base running, mentality, and more, led by experienced instructors and coaches. Athletes will receive hands-on instruction and skill building. So this is going to be at D/BAT Missoula. Little clubs play group at the Sports Barn. So Sports Barn has basically become the more and more of that indoor arena for folks to get some recreation for the little kids. Starting at 10 a.m. I got some more indoor recreation with kids activities for you later on. So we're going to jump right in. Missoula Food Bank meal distribution is going on today from 10 to about 1 in the afternoon. They usually have longer hours most days. Oh, no, my bad. I double checked, but Missoula Food Bank meal distribution will be open from 10 to 1 today. So Secret Seconds thrift store starting at 10 a.m. today and tomorrow. They're doing a 50% off all items sale between clothing, shoes, and accessory, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Secret Seconds, all their money goes to their nonprofit, YWCA. So this is a good cause to help provide those services for those folks. Tiny Tales at Missoula Public Library every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Yarns and Watercolor, 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library at 12 noon every Friday. Home Resource Open Workshop, they've been doing this on a regular basis to bring in your items to fix. So they have their open workshop at 12:30 at Home Resources. Brown Bag and Bones with paleontologist Jason C. Poole. Natural History Center is hosting paleontologist Jason C. Poole at 1 p.m. on today. Middle school junior cartography class, Explorers Map, is hosting a cartography class starting at 1 p.m. today at their Explorers Map. Predator feeding at Missoula Butterfly House at 3:30 p.m. See how those bugs and butterflies fly and eat and consume. Young Adults Writers Group at 3:30 p.m. here at the Missoula Public Library. Learn to write better, essentially. Dinner services at the Palvarella Center starting at 5 o'clock. They have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner services free, and food pantries are available. Family's First Comedy Night at Missoula Public Library here on the 2nd floor of the Missoula Public Library starting at 5:30 p.m. Doing a fun, family-friendly comedy night for the kiddos. Kinky Bingo, not so family-friendly, at Monk's Bar, doing some bingo downstairs. Old-fashioned tree lighting ceremony at the 9 Mile Schoolhouse. They're doing theirs. Missoula will be doing theirs on the first Saturday, which will be happening on December 6th, starting around 6 p.m. for the Holiday on Higgins event. The Brothers Comatose at the WUMA, doing some country music, karaoke at the Jack Saloon, country swing class at Showtime Academy, Dance Up Close at 7:30 p.m. at University of Montana. The theater and dance is proud to present Dance Up Close. This is a black box dance concert, premieres original and immersive choreography work from emerging artists, faculty, and guest artists. The performance is presented in collaboration with developing designers on the second of the School of Theater and Dance. And Saturday night at 7:30 is their last show. Lost and Found, Play on Taps at Missoula Art Museum. The Montana Repertory partners with the Missoula Art Museum will bring a unique blending of live theater and visual art. Four playwrights featuring Paul Cruz, Madeline Sayet, Habib Yazdid, Avery Dutch, explores what it means to lose something and perhaps find it again. This on-site performance of 4 new plays includes mature themes and language. Audiences will move throughout the art museum during the show. And the synopsis reads, "Welcome to your local art museum, now sponsored by the U.S. Department of War. We want to assure you that all rumors of this museum has been in any way abnormal or unsafe in recent weeks are entirely untrue, and this absolutely has nothing to do the hearsay that our beautiful artwork are having profound metaphysical interactions with our patrons," end quote. We have another thing happening at the Old Post tonight, playing some jazz with the Night Blooming Jasmine at 8 p.m. Union Club is hosting Tomcats. Cahoots is meeting at Sunrise Saloon playing some country music at 9:30. And to help wrap up your Friday night, you got Friday night late skate at Glacier Ice Rink and Saints of Soldiers at the Top Hat playing some folk music to wrap up your Friday. As we jump into Saturday, all your indoor fun and activities are available for kids and adults for winter markets and indoor recreation from Get Air, YMCA, Mismo, Roots Acro Sports Center, the Sports Barn, as I mentioned earlier, for all their things that they do. Hellgate PTA Crafts Fair at the Hellgate Middle School. So Hellgate Middle School, just up Mullen Road, is doing their own PTA craft fair to help raise money and bolster some of their organization as well. Second anniversary celebration and tailgate party at Explorer Maps at 9 a.m. Line dance at Missoula Senior Center at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Makerspace walk-in hours here at Missoula Public Library. They have a lot of great resources for people to figure out things. They have sewing machines. They have all sorts of fun things like 3D printer and 3D scanners and more. Orchard Homes 30th Annual Market Day and Holiday Bazaar at 10 a.m. 24 local artists, bakers, and farmers. Honey Holiday Decor, Jewelry, Macabre, Macram, baking goods, baked goods. Man, I'm not reading that right. I'm just breezing right through this. But quilted items, herbal teas, and this is going on both on Saturday and Sunday, starting at 10 a.m. Story time at Missoula Public Library every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Decorating dangos with ceramic artist Chrissy Ramirez at Missoula Art Museum starting at 11 a.m. This is part of their drop-in times of the museum. This workshop invites you to decorate your own mini dango. The theme is dumpling, a rounded form in Japanese. Explore the decorative techniques by Kaneko. Uses his momentum ceramic sculptures while working with the bisque mold and equipment with visual elements like shapes, colors, and surface designs through glazing. So children under the age of 7 must be accompanied by adult. It is free admission at the Missoula Art Museum starting at 11 a.m. That sounds really fun. Sensory story time. This is for kids who are a little bit more sensitive, looking to get some additional reading time in at 11:30 on the at the Missoula Public Library. Teen Open Studio. This is for kids who want to experience art and have art supplies provided for them, and this is on Saturdays at 1 p.m. And speaking of 1 p.m. on Saturdays, MCAT Saturday drop-ins for kids who like stop animation and more, every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. Saturday activities, they're doing turkeys at Montana Natural History Center, so learn a little bit more about that and some of their etymology and all that stuff because they're the Natural History Center. Twilight Weekend, vendor pop-up, the Roxy Theater, the Roxy Lobby from 2 to 5 p.m. Holiday shoppings, they're all about Twilight. So if you're obsessed with Twilight, they're doing their Twilight anniversary with their special weekend vendor pop-ups. D&D Guild for teens online at Missoula Public Library online at 3 p.m. You can look up more information at themissoulaevents.net. Swaps Giving, a romance book swap at FMC Books this November. Give thanks to the books and fresh book boyfriends. At Swaps Giving, you'll bring up to 5 gently used books and swap them out for new to you reads from fellow romance lovers of the community. The 90s themed skate. They're also doing a turkey curling at the Missoula Glacier Ice Rink at the Missoula Fairgrounds, so you can check that out starting at 6 p.m. Throw in frozen turkeys instead of those curlings, marble rock things. Anyways, speed dating and relating at Sacred Alley. If you're interested in doing some speed dating at 7 p.m. tonight is happening at Sacred Alley. Riddy Arman is going to be performing folk music at Monk starting at 7 p.m. Folk at Draftworks, Mary Place and Blue Moon. Starting at 7 p.m. Missoula Folklore Society, Contra Dances is doing some dancing up in the Elks Lodge Ballroom at 8 p.m. Karaoke at Westside Lanes at 9. Blue Collar Band at Union Club. Wild Prairie at Sunrise Saloon. DJ Chris Moon every Saturday at the Badlander. And then Signal Fire at the Top Hat, wrapping up your Saturday. As Sunday, we're going to continue that Orchard Homes 38th Annual Market Day and Holiday Bazaar. Speed Puzzle Competition at Draftworks at noon. MCT auditions for Ken Ludwig's Moon Over Buffalo. This is at the Central School part of the building off of Main Street at MCT. Plant swap at Western Cider. So Western Cider, they're doing a plant swap. Check that out. Fall, Sunday beginning pottery at the Clay Studio of Missoula. Space Mission, a Zine release, reading and Zine swap. This is at the Confluence Center. This is featuring a publication release, reading and Zine swap at the Confluence Center downtown from 3 to 5 p.m. The community's response to writing prompt inspired by a vintage pinball machine found walled into a Missoula home. Lots of Zinsters will also be there selling their publications and creative goodnesses. All right, pinball tournament, odd pitch, bingo at Tamarack, Dram Trivia at the Dram Shop, Sunday Jazz at Draftworks, and comedy at 8 p.m. at VFW, karaoke at Sunrise Saloon to wrap up your Sunday night. And we have some time for a little bit of news stuff here and there. The government is opening again, and the Democrats got nothing but a promise to expend the ACA by the end of December based on the word, rather than just, them agreeing to it now. However, 8 of the Senate Dems still working through the shutdown agreed to fund that package to reopen the government and got federal workers to get paid. The backlash has shown the cracks in the Democratic powers, or lack thereof, as the only tool they used to put the GOP's feet to the flame has now seemed to be betting on their promise. There is nothing more to say, as the Democratic leadership, especially in the Senate, undermined the House's attempt to save people money on the medical insurance. Perhaps this promise will save people money. As we dive back into Montana news, you will see the Aurora Borealis this week, and courtesy of my own sister, who took a picture of it in her own backyard, you can just see some of the Aurora Borealis behind me. Wednesday was cloudy, couldn't see a darn thing, and not so good. There are some places who posted some photos, Rattlesnake, Snowball, and Lee Metcalf National Wildlife Refuge, so a little darker in some areas. University of Great Falls is having trouble looking to restructure a deal with the ongoing challenges of markets. So they basically got bought out by a privately owned company with Providence Health, and they gave them $8 million annually to the university to cover expenses, but they're not going to be able to give them the money this year. And according to Montana Free Press, where I also got the story about the High Country store in Lincoln, this seemed to be a pretty common theme with the post-pandemic era, where a lot of these budgets went to what's called a budget cliff. And President of Providence University in Great Falls, Caroline Goulet, and other University of Providence administrations are asking their board to approve a declaration of financial exigency, which acknowledges a budget crisis and allows officials to take drastic measures in restructuring programs, reduce staff, and launch new enrollment and revenue campaigns. Montana Free Press reported that this would be the top to bottom restructuring in moves to save the university, meaning budget cuts, reduction in staff, and more. Speaking of Providence, organization that owns 50 hospitals across the U.S., a New York Times investigation in 2022 detailed aggressive billing and collection tactics by Providence, even for patients who would be eligible for free care due to their incomes. Reports from Oregon, where Providence is a top employer, say that the health system lost $261 million in early 2025, with nearly 5,000 unionized health professionals went on strike. So the university has spent the last few months strategically informing internal stakeholders. It's now to embark on a more public process that Goulet hopes will be proactive decision in facing the budget cliff. Education institutions have had to be dealt with many similar blows with the pandemic. Saw a lot of money flowing into these institutions to help update many technologies so kids could still attend from home. Missoula felt with similar blows when they tried to save money from their shortcomings and that budget cliff by targeting the fine arts director's position. Too much of the community's disdain, leading to many other hours being cut from other art programs across the Missoula schools. And some of the issues with institutions when they discover budget shortfalls tend to lean into the newer programs that were funded by some sort of subsidies, and then those funds dry up and low-hanging fruit like fine arts tends to get targeted. The administration is also looking to rescind certain rules when it comes to public lands, but 98% of public opinion is against this. So while we couldn't sell the public lands in the government, the Secretary of the Interior is looking to essentially lease these lands for these kind of operations, extraction of minerals and other private uses of public lands. It's kind of like, we cannot sell it. Why don't we just enrich the people who want to use the land at a real cheap rate? One of the Bureau of Land Management's almost 250 million acres, less than 14% is managed for conservation, while 90% is open to and not necessarily leased by oil and gas drilling, and 60% is open to grazing. Stone Manning said that the rule would safeguard the health of public lands in 3 ways: protecting the best, most intact landscapes, by restoring lands and waters that need help, and by using science and indigenous knowledge to make land decisions. Laura Lanquist of Missoula Current reported that in 2023 of July, more than 215,000 public comments were received on the 90-day comment period. Center for Western Prairies analyzing those public comments found that 92% support adoption of the rule, which would require the vetting of the process. So it's easy to say public lands are in disarray when the people who steward the lands are fired from their position. The same thing can be said about the undertaking federal workers dealt with during the shutdown when not being paid resulted in many national parks closing bathroom facilities for more direct impacts. So access is the name of the game, and unlike our Governor Greg Gianforte, some developers don't understand the state constitution for those water rights. And more on this Montana Free Press, they talked about some of the exploitation of exempt wells. So if they can't have a water infrastructure, they're allowed to drill. But some of those things are being oversight and overlooked. And legislators passed a law in 1973 allowing just about anyone to drill a well. And so this story is fully available on Montana Free Press, as I have officially run out of time for my morning show. And I want to thank you guys for joining me and for Wake Up Missoula. I'm Scott Ramp. Take care, everyone.